Enterprise risk management. So, what is enterprise risk management, TI? So, it is a term used in business to describe risk management methods that firms use to identify and mitigate risks that can pose problems for the enterprise. So, what are the major risks that could stop our enterprise from achieving our mission, our goal, and our objective? So, in order to understand the nature of business, the activity strategies of enterprise that particular enterprise is working on, each and every company's nature of business is different, and why we can say that they are exposed to different type of risk. Types of risk. First, business risk. Business risk is the exposure of an organization to lost profits or failures stemming from both internal weakness and external threats. Business risk is the possibility of an organization in the next period of time would either will have the lower profit expressed or considering the next following risk that they will experience loss instead of profit. We will figure this out through income statement. This threat that enables the company to achieve its goal. Next is hazard risk. The hazard risks the exposure to hazard may produce negative results. If there is no exposure to the hazard, a hazard will not present a risk. Like hazard risk include risks that present a high level of threat to human life, health, or the property that are present in workplace. Example, there will be a fire for whatever reason, like maybe due to electricity short circuit. The next is the financial risk. The concept of financial risk includes broad strategic risk associated with business capitalization involving both leverage and liquidity. Operational risk associated with transaction execution and settlement involving credit risk, default risk, and hedging. Financial risk this include many types of risk, like all those risks that are directly related to money. You can say that they include financial consequences like an increase of cost or a decline in revenues. We are talking about the cash flow of the company, whether it's enough to sustain the company and satisfy its shareholders. So next is the strategic risk. Strategic risk is the risk that external threats could prevent an organization from executing its strategy. Strategic risks that these are the risks that affect or are created by strategic business decisions, like for example any decision that is not taken fully assessing and analyzing, like it's suppose a US enterprise made a decision to expand its operation in China, and let's suppose after 6 months of its expansion and on its establishment in China, let's say due to load of government relations between America and China, that US enterprise need to shut down their business in China. With this example, US based enterprise needs to make a strategic business decision by identifying and assessing all possible risks associated with their decision to open there. So there you can say to expand the operation in China, that we notice there is something wrong and will have something to do with the business. The next will be the operational risk. Operational risk represents the exposure of an organization to have their day-to-day operations separate from the risk presented by the economy or by participation in an industry. These are the risks that materially affect an organization due to many reasons, like there is prospect of loss resulting from inadequate or failed procedures for internal affairs of an organization. Then we have systems or the policies. Then also we have the employees' errors, system failures, fraud, and other criminal activities.
Panagdait sa kanan. My topic for today is risk assessment for continuation. What is a risk assessment? A risk assessment is simply a careful examination of what, in your work, could cause harm to people, so that you can weigh up whether you have taken enough precautions or should do more to prevent harm. Why should we do risk assessment? First, legal requirement by law under the Management of Health and Safety to Work Regulations 1999 and individual organizations health and safety policies required under the Health and Safety at Work etc. Act 1974. Second, financial less chance of claims and precautions. Third, moral duty of care owed to all employees and others affected by work. What information should a risk assessment include? First, hazard, what could go wrong. Second, people at risk who might be harmed. Third, control measures at present have enough precautions been taken. Fourth, further action required should more be done. Fifth, record details and put the assessment under the review. So, who is responsible for doing the risk assessment? Your organization's health and safety policy will outline who is responsible for completing the risk assessment. So in a school, the overall responsibility of ensuring risk assessments are completed is at one of the head teacher and governing body. However, heads of individual departments are most likely responsible for ensuring that a reasonable, possible, significant risks are assessed and managed effectively. So there will also be a line of accountability to the head teacher and governing body outlined in the policy. Are there any standard risk assessments available to use? Yes, there are lots of samples and models available to get you started or assist the process. CYPS provides models for schools on the RGFL portal page and RUNICE intranet site. There are also specialist models available from CREAPS, covering science, art, and DMT, AFE, covering sport, and PE risks, Evolve, covering educational research risks, etc. So what risks exist in around school? Samples include safeguarding, supervision of pupils inside security education districts, use, handling, storage, and transport of articles and substances, eggs, clothes, treatments, etc. So there are use of samples include use of equipment, egg, PE, apparat.
Risk assessment tools. There is an expected loss and the unexpected loss. So expected loss for the financial assets are the average credit loss anticipated from an exposure over a given period. So these mean that the expected loss for the financial asset is the average credit loss expected from an exposure over a particular period. Then the concept of the expected loss can be expanded to the components of risk that management confronts. So these include the different types of risk that management faces. So one is the average loss from the exposure to the operational risk. So for example, the sum of the predicted loss from fraud, hiring practices, or the process of management. Then number two is the expected losses for the property. So as part of the normal operating cash flow, a business will typically have a predicted company loss. Then next is the unexpected loss. So overall, this means that the business has an unexpected loss. It will happen by the nature and it is normal for the business. It is also computed using the difference of VAR and the difference of VAR and the expected loss. So what is VAR? This is used to quantify the extent possible financial loss in the business over a specific time period. So the computation of VAR in three methods. One is the historical method, which this means that they arranged the prior return from worst to the best. The next is the variance covariance method. So this means that the assumption of the business return or assumption of the investment return. Then next is the Monte Carlo simulation. This means that this estimate the future outcome of the business. So next is the qualitative risk assessment tool. So what overall, this means that this assessment tool is used to approach to measure the risk in numerical ranking scale. A quantitative risk assessment tool. This is also an assessment tool used to understand the exposure of risk to the employees, environment, and the company's asset. So, in quantitative risk assessment tool, there is a cash flow at risk. So, overall in the presentation, this means that the cash flow at risk is the potential risk of shorting the cash flow earning at risk. So overall in the presentation, it is mean that the risk of the interest rate in a specific period of time. And last is the earnings distributions. So overall in the presentation, this means that this is a statistical measure on how many people earn of that various amount income. Also, this shows the probable distributions of earning income.
Quantitative risk management tools. Earning distribution. An earning distribution is a tool used in risk management that plots a probability distribution of earning outcomes. To get the earning per share, simply multiply the 1.3 to 15% probability, 1.5 to 25% probability, and so on. And after multiplying, add the product of each to get the earning per share, which equals to 1.60. Cost-benefit analysis is used to support resource allocation decisions such as equipment acquisition, technology enhancement, and employee hiring. Cost-benefit analysis help business weigh pros and cons in data-driven ways so they can make complex decisions in a systematic manner. The primary reason for conducting cost analysis is generally to determine the true or full cost of each of the programs under analysis, both services and or end products. Capital adequacy and risk. Sufficient capital and capital adequacy are terms used specifically most entities to sustain the financial resources required to operate and grow the business. The capital adequacy ratio, also known as capital to risk-weighted assets ratio, measures a bank's financial strength by using its capital and assets. The term capital adequacy, used in conjunction with bank regulations, references a capital adequacy ratio, used to measure the risk that reasonable losses are high as to make the bank insolvent and endanger depositors' funds. The higher the capital assets ratio, the lower the risk of potential insolvency. Therefore, the higher a bank's CAR, the more likely it is to be able to withstand a financial downturn or other unforeseen losses.